Okay, today we're going to talk about how to evaluate some rough and how to get really out of focus. How should you evaluate rough? First, you need a quiet environment. Then, you gotta sit down and really get in the mood to evaluate rough. Then you have to look at it for so long until it starts driving you crazy in a good way. Now each of these rocks does have like a lot of different qualities to it. You really kind of have to like use your imagination. It's the best advice I could give you. It takes people so long to figure this out, but it's right there in front of you the whole time if you just open up and look at each piece of rough for what it's good for. And I'm just going to go off the top of my head and give you some generalized ideas. Now, depending on what type of rough you're looking at, like we have some common opal, and then we have some lavender quartz, you get a feeling for the average size of the piece that you can create. Now, the lavender quartz is obviously bigger, and the common opal was in a vein, so it's smaller. Immediately right off, you kind of have to look at the common opal as a little bit more of a gemstone, even if it's not. I lean it in that direction because it's smaller, and that's kind of a stupid thing, but what are you really going to do with something that small? This piece of rough is small as my finger. You could get a lot of carats out of that. It could make it into a nice piece of jewelry. This could be a pendant. This could be some earrings. Two separate earrings if I cut it in half. And cabochons aren't the only thing that you can do. Obviously, if you have a big enough piece, you can do like some carvings. Carvings are a big deal. I'm not going to go into carvings. We're going to talk about mostly cabochons, because the beginners usually start with cabochons, and I think it's a good idea. Now, a cabochon doesn't have to always be the same oval that we all remember. It gets boring when you look at cabochon after cabochon, and they're all ovals. My Rockman says that too, like, yeah, I bought a whole bunch of cabochons, but they're all ovals. You don't want them all to be exactly the same. And the way that I look at the lavender quartz at this moment, it's rare to me, personally. So I don't want to lose any of the carat weight. I'm talking about something in carats that's this big. But that's how I actually feel about this material. It's so rare that I view it to be something I would weigh in probably grams or carats. Definitely grams, but eventually carats. These make a little bit too big of cabochons. Okay, like especially this one's different than all the other ones, but and that one. I tried to cut some of the bigger ones into more massive pieces, but typically a cabochon is cut from something even smaller than this. Most slabs that you buy are smaller. I just think big about everything, so I always have big ideas. And the way that I look at these, probably the best way to not lose material, being that it's rare, is to freeform them. And freeforming a cabochon has a few problems in this particular situation the carrot size is too big. This is pretty typical of like a pendant, but this is not, unless you're Flava Flav, you know what I mean? So you have to think about, after 40 carats, you lose your market of people that want to buy a cabochon over 40 carats. They're kind of in a paperweight category. So that's another consideration. You have to really think about, how big is this going to be? Because it's okay to polish a slice. Like, that's what I'm going to do to this one. If you have big enough ones to be slices, these aren't really for cabochons, these are for slices. I just don't like my slices to break, so don't make your slices like way thin to where they snap, if you have the choice of doing this yourself. These are slices. You just polish the faces of them because they're big enough to be appreciated. Now these, it's going to be harder to sell somebody a polished slice. Not that I want to ever sell any of this material. But, yeah, it is too small. Like, how are you going to mount that? You have it sitting up. Like, this is as big as you would really go. Any of these other ones are a little bit small, unless somebody really romanced this material as much as I do. So if you wanted to create some cabochons, create 2 or 3. Just trace the pattern on there, and then another one on there, you know. Look at it like that. You're not losing much material. You just cut out, see, if I was cutting out 2 cabochons here, I would get the purple parts and leave these white parts out. You always have to look at the material for that kind of quality too. So think about it. There's so many choices that it's more creative than just ovals and squares. Even though that's mostly what I did.